hit the board.
Kyle?
The first thing I try to do, handicapping a 20-horse field is just kind of a little hard to rack your head around. You know, a lot of pages and a lot of races to look at. So the first thing I did is just try to cut it in half and take out the 10 horses that I think have no chance of finding their way into the top half of this field. They're not going to be involved in any exotic wagers, and then try to handicap the 10 remaining ones, which is a little more manageable. Out of those ones that I have excluded right off the bat, and obviously you hope that one of these doesn't run and one lights out, or else I'm done. Cowtown Cat's included in this list. His 2 races most recently, they have been impressive. He hasn't beaten a whole heck of a lot. Waffy City in the Gotham came back to run 9th in the Derby trial. Cowtown Cat came back and won the Illinois Derby. Bold Start 3rd in that one, came back to run 3rd in the Derby trial. He's been forwardly placed in slow races, and I just think he's pretty kind of overrated. It is Todd Pletcher. I think he'll take some money, and that's a good thing. I'm going to toss him. Liquidity is taking blinkers off. He was a horse that I did have high hopes for. I know Doug O'Neill has high hopes for him. His last 2 races have just been so extremely disappointing. He turned for home looking like an absolute winner in the St. Anita Derby and somehow managed to finish off the board. Louisiana Derby was in a good spot there and just absolutely faded through the stretch. He just has not shown enough in the last 2 races to merit a look here. He is at 30-1, so if you're one that has an inkling that he can turn it around, don't jump off the bandwagon. The blinkers do come off. I'm not sure what that's going to do for him, but Liquidity is one that just hasn't shown enough in the last 2 races to keep on track anymore. Teufelsberg I've never been high on. He's a terrible horse getting away from the gate. I think that's going to hurt him right off the bat. Sam P takes the blinkers back off. He's a horse that I just have not been fond of all along. He was ridden hard for the last 5/8 of a mile in the Robert Lewis. Toughed it up in the St. Anita Derby with blinkers on. Now the blinkers come back off. A lot of changes leading up to this race on him. Stormello, I don't know exactly what they're trying to do with his early running style, taking him back or whatever. I have serious questions about him getting 1.25 miles regardless. Dominican, he's kind of an interesting horse and one I kind of put on the bubble of the top 10. He is undefeated on synthetic surfaces. He's also undefeated since being gelded following the Kentucky Jockey Club. So whether he's improved because of the gelding or whether he's improved because both races this year have been on synthetic surfaces, that's certainly a major question. Drawing post 19, however, doesn't do him any favors. And then Great Hunter from the outside post. He ran down Sam P in the Robert Lewis race. That was a decent comeback, but he had absolutely no excuses in the Bluegrass. He was already beaten by the time he lost his path in the Bluegrass, so I'm going to toss him as well. That said, that leaves the top 10. Curlin and Street Sense, like Anthony said, both have a license to run extremely well. Street Sense has had everything go his own way. He drew post 7, which is a perfect post. He's been training absolutely brilliantly. He is the talk of the Churchill Downs backstretch. I think he will go off the favorite despite the fact that Curlin is the morning line favorite. But Street Sense, his 2 graded stakes victories that have really built up his reputation, he has been able to build up a full head of steam and hit the top of the stretch with a hole along the rail and win both of those in that fashion. I don't know that that's going to happen in the Kentucky Derby with a field of 20. If Calvin Burrell can work it out, he can very well pull off a juvenile repeat, but I don't think that trip is going to happen. He looked absolutely lost in the middle of the track in the Bluegrass, and at a short price, I'm going to try to beat him, although I certainly would not exclude him from the exotics. Curlin, we mentioned, is drawn post 2, not a very favorable post for him. He does not have a lot of experience racing inside of horses. He may just be talented enough to pull off a very good effort, but he's going to be very short price. And when you consider Barbaro was 6-1 last year, taking anything less than that on Curlin is really hard to swallow, especially for a win bet. But another one that I wouldn't use out of the exotics, because if you're going to get a price in here, you wouldn't want the inclusion of Curlin in there to be the one that costs you a ticket. No Biz Like Showbiz and Circular Key are both 2 that I think could run very well, but I'm just not sure that you're going to get the effort that you're looking for. No Biz Like Showbiz has just had antics after antics, the cotton in the ears, the blinkers on. He's going to have a lot more distractions at Churchill Downs than he's witnessed at Aqueduct. He's even been acting up a little bit and working out at the Belmont Park Training Center. So I just think that he still has a lot to prove. I think he's going to take some money. And interestingly enough, David Grenning asked Barkley Tagg yesterday, what are you worried about as far as his antics facing 150,000 people at Churchill? And he said, I just hope I can get the 1.25 miles. So now when you throw that question in, he may be one that you can look to beat. Circular Key has just an absolute world of talent, but I have serious questions about the fact that he missed that final prep. Todd Pletcher, when he sets a schedule, usually sticks right to that. You have to think there was a solid reason for him to bypass that, and now giving him 8 weeks up to this race. This is the one that Johnny Velasquez chose to ride, and he certainly has a ton of talent. He's proven over the Churchill Downs surface, but he's going to have a lot of horses to pass. And again, just the fact that he did not stay on the original schedule that Pletcher laid out, I think is a dark cloud hanging over him. Zanjero and Tiago are both horses that I think are going to make late moves up into it. Zanjero has been extremely slow to progress for Steve Asmussen. He has very high hopes for him. He just does not seem, has yet to find anyways, that final acceleration that it's going to take to get up into the mix. He had no chance in the Bluegrass. He has no right being 2 lengths off of the lead, contesting the early pace. He won't on Saturday. He's going to be back where he likes to be at the tail of the field, make a run. I think he has a very good chance of getting up to get a minor piece. Tiago falls in that same boat. That kind of leaves a couple of horses on top here, and that's Any Given Saturday and Hard Spun. Any Given Saturday I will use on top. He has 3 races as a 2-year-old, 3 races at age 3. You get Garrett Gomez aboard, and Gomez and Velasquez have absolutely been on fire. And when you look at the statistics, remember Gomez came in last spring when Velasquez got hurt at Keeneland. Since opening day at Saratoga, when John Velasquez was aboard Cotton Blossom in the opening day Schuylerville, and they won that race, Velasquez and Gomez have been aboard a Pletcher-trained runner in 15 graded stakes races. So since that day, there have been 15 graded stakes where Pletcher's had multiple entries. Gomez was on one, Velasquez was on the other. Velasquez hasn't won any of those races. Gomez has won 5. And I think that's a telling statistic. I love the fact that Gomez is on Any Given Saturday. I love the schedule Any Given Saturday is taken. And I really think that Todd Pletcher said, you know what, we'll sacrifice a poor effort in the Wood Memorial to give him an extra week into the Kentucky Derby. That's what he's going to get here. Did not want to see him drop post 18. But that's the way the dice fall, and you can certainly just as easily get a tough trip breaking from post 7. So I'll take my chances with Garrett Gomez on a decent price here on Any Given Saturday. I think you're going to get a very square price, especially given the fact that he was beaten by Street Sense in the Tampa Bay Derby. He was beaten by No Biz Like Showbiz most recently in the Wood. Those horses are going to take more money than he is and drawing outside. I think you'll get a square price on Any Given Saturday, and that's where I'm going to land. Hard Spun is going to be right underneath him. He's also going to be a nice price. He's been away since the lane's end, but you know what? He's only done one thing wrong, and that was in the Oaklawn race, in which they said he just did not handle the surface. And if you listen to Mark and Mike's show following that effort, other trainers have kind of backed up the fact that the track was a little goofy that afternoon, and there was a reason for Hard Spun not to take to it. Outside of that, he's a perfect 5 for 5. He's bred for the distance. He's bred for a wet track, and Louisville's getting a ton of rain right now. He comes in fresh, and I actually saw him this past week. He looks very good. Larry Jones, who is a big dude, actually gets on him and gallops him 1.5 miles every morning, so I have no questions about Hard Spun's fitness. So I'm going to use him in the top flight as well, and use Any Given Saturday, Hard Spun, over the 2 favorites.
Seth?
I think it's a wide open